spinning not just from the alcohol but from the conversation I'd just had. I couldn't shake the way the guys talked about their wives, like they were untrustworthy by default, like love alone wasn't enough to keep a marriage together. It made me uneasy. But at the same time, I knew my relationship with Emily was different. We'd been through a lot together, and through it all, I'd never had a single reason to doubt her. The streets were quiet as the taxi rolled through town, the occasional streetlight flickering past the window. I glanced at my phone. 12:47 a.m. Right on schedule. Emily would probably be waiting up for me, maybe even with a late-night snack. She always worried when I went out drinking, making sure I ate something before crashing into bed. The thought of seeing her made me smile, and I leaned back, watching the city blur by. When the taxi finally pulled up in front of our building, I paid the driver and stepped out, inhaling the cool night air. I felt more sober now, my mind clearer. I climbed the stairs to our apartment, fishing my keys out of my pocket. As I slid the key into the lock, I noticed something odd. The door wasn't fully closed. My stomach did a little flip, but I brushed it off. Maybe Emily had forgotten to shut it properly after taking out the trash or something. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The apartment was dimly lit, just the glow from the kitchen spilling into the hallway. I could hear faint movement, soft rustling, and then, laughter. A man's laughter. My blood ran cold. I stood there frozen, my brain scrambling to make sense of what I was hearing. The laughter stopped abruptly, followed by hurried whispers and the creak of the floorboards. My heart pounded in my chest as I stepped forward, forcing myself to move, forcing myself to breathe. I turned the corner into the living room, and there she was. Emily. Sitting on the couch, her face pale, her eyes wide with something between shock and guilt. And beside her, pulling on his shirt, was Nick. My mind was a storm of conflicting emotions. I was irritated that my friends' wives had put them through so much trouble that they felt the need for constant surveillance. But at the same time, I couldn't stop thinking about Nick's situation. The whole thing just felt overwhelmingly sad and messy. By the time I finally stepped through my front door, Emily's face lit up like a Christmas tree. She didn't just smile, she practically launched herself into my arms, wrapping around me like she hadn't seen me in years. Her excitement felt so real, so raw. In that moment, I told myself there was no way she could be unfaithful. No way. That kind of joy couldn't be faked. We ended up in the bedroom almost immediately, losing ourselves in an intense, passionate reunion. It felt like everything was exactly as it should be, as if my earlier doubts had been ridiculous. Afterward, she nestled against me, drifting into a peaceful sleep on my shoulder while I lay there, staring at the ceiling, completely awake. Nick's words kept replaying in my head. Should I do it? Should I check her phone? The idea felt invasive, wrong even, but curiosity gnawed at me. What if I was the fool? What if I was the only one living in blissful ignorance? Eventually, my need for answers won out. I moved carefully, easing the phone off the nightstand without making a sound. My fingers trembled slightly as I flipped through it. At first, everything seemed normal. Texts, social media, nothing out of the ordinary. I started to feel guilty, ready to put it back. And then I saw it. Strange app buried among the others. My stomach clenched. My pulse pounded in my ears. My palms felt clammy as I tapped on it. A dating app. Under a fake name. My heart nearly stopped. My worst nightmare was unfolding right in front of me, and I wasn't ready for it. Messages. So many of them. Explicit. Intimate. Disgusting. As I scrolled, my breathing turned shallow. It wasn't just one guy. It wasn't just an emotional thing. There were multiple men, and the messages left no doubt about what had been happening. I kept reading, though every word felt like a fresh stab to my gut. And then I saw a conversation from earlier that very day. My wife had been with another man just hours before I came home. Bile rose in my throat. My hands shook with a mix of rage and devastation. I couldn't bear to look at her sleeping peacefully beside me, so I slid out of bed and stormed into the other room, grabbing whatever I could find and stuffing her belongings into bags. My chest felt tight, my mind spinning. I barely noticed the hours slipping by as I worked through the night, fueled by adrenaline and heartbreak. At dawn, I returned to the bedroom and shook her awake. She stretched, smiling sleepily, and reached for me, completely oblivious. Get up, I said, my voice cold and sharp. She blinked in confusion. What's wrong? I threw her phone onto the bed in front of her, the app still open. Explain this. Her face drained of color. For a few seconds, she just stared, lips slightly parted. Then she scrambled for an excuse. It's not mine. It's my friend's account. She was using my phone, I swear. I let out a bitter laugh. You really expect me to believe that? She tried again, spinning more lies, but I wasn't listening anymore. I grabbed her arm and marched her to the hallway, where her packed suitcases sat waiting. That's when the tears started. She begged, sobbed, clung to me, saying she had made a mistake, that she loved me, that she didn't want to lose me. I just stood there, feeling nothing but anger and betrayal. You already lost me, I said flatly. And then she was gone. For days, I felt like I was sleepwalking through life. I avoided home as much as possible, spent hours wandering aimlessly. The one thing that kept me afloat was my friends. They didn't mock me for being blind to the truth. They stood by me, distracting me, making sure I didn't drown in my own misery. Some even tried to set me up with new women, but I couldn't bring myself to care. Dating was the last thing on my mind. Then, just when I thought I could finally move on, my phone rang. It was her. I'm pregnant, she said. And it's yours. I actually laughed. A dry, humorless laugh. You expect me to believe that? She insisted. Swore up and down that the baby was mine. Once upon a time, hearing those words from her would have been the best moment of my life. Now, it just felt like another cruel twist in this nightmare. I told her I'd want a DNA test before anything else. She hesitated, then finally admitted that she'd already found the real father. Good luck with that, I said and hung up, closing the door on that chapter of my life forever. Months passed. I buried myself in work, in nights out with my friends. The pain dulled. And then, as New Year's Eve approached, the guys and I decided to celebrate properly. A big night out at a local bar, complete with music, drinks, and no worries. At some point, a group of holiday dancers took the stage. Women in sparkling Santa outfits, short skirts, bright smiles. Their routine was fun, energetic, and for the first time in a long while, something in me shifted. When their performance ended, I found myself following them backstage. I struck up a conversation, charmed them, convinced them to join our table. Maybe it was my flirting, maybe it was just the festive atmosphere, but they agreed. My friends were more than happy about the unexpected guests, and the night turned into one wild, carefree blur. The next morning, I woke up feeling warm. Literally. I turned my head and realized I wasn't alone. Not one, but two of those cheerful snow princesses were tangled up beside me. I blinked a few times, then smiled to myself. Life goes on. And maybe, just maybe, it wasn't so bad after all.